Most of the memoir takes place, most of it, between 1978 and 1980. And then there are some sections that really take place in the later 80s and later than that. But the story is in that period. And I waited, when I got back from El Salvador, you know, I was doing many things. I was giving a lot of readings from the country between us, and I was traveling around the country. My objective, my obsession at the time was to try to prevent military intervention in Central America. And I waited. I knew this, I had to write this story someday, but I didn't feel ready. I wanted to get a perspective on it. I was a little scared to write it. And then after 23 years, the poet Ilya Kaminsky, who was my friend, said, you know, it's time. You need to write this now. You need to tell this story. So I started, and it took 15 years to write it. 15. I was waylaid by a few things. I had, our house was destroyed by water, and I had cancer, but you know, those slowed me down for maybe a year each. But I think I also was learning to write a prose book. I wrote 4 versions of it before I was happy, and I kept revising and polishing sentences and, you know, working the way a poet works rather than the way a prose writer works. And so it took a great deal of time. So it's coming out actually in an interesting way, you know, 40 years later. And it comes out at a time when people from El Salvador are reaching our border as refugees. Mm-hmm. And they are fleeing conditions that were created in the time I write about. So I realized that it had to come out now, not earlier. It had to be a book that would connect those 2 periods, our present with that past. And I wanted to write it especially for the Salvadoran students who've come to my office over the years and have asked me what happened, to talk to them about what happened, because their parents won't talk about it. And so this is, for them, this is the account. This is what I saw. I tried to replicate the journey I took in the book. The reader never knows more than I knew at the time. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of creating the fog of unknowing and the sort of strange state that one experiences when one doesn't know what's going to happen, and in the midst of something that can be really truly frightening. There's also a lot of humor in the book, because the man who guided me through El Salvador, Claribel Alegria's cousin, was very terribly funny and, you know, used humor to diffuse tension. And he was brilliant and a very mysterious guy and had lots of talents and abilities, and no one really knew who he was. You know, some people thought he was, you know, with the guerrillas. Some people thought he worked for the CIA. He was a champion marksman. He was a motorcycle racing champion. He was a lot of things. And, you know, for me, one of the most interesting people I've ever known. And so he's the main character. And I want readers to know him, because he was really important and delightful and exceptional. Not someone one encounters every day.